Hello, welcome to the very, very early Dominaria United 17Lands data review, featuring an exclusive appearance from Wingmantle Chaplain, the card that everybody is wanting to talk about at the moment, myself included. That's where I'm going to begin this review, is talking all things Wingmantle Chaplain, because it really is the most significant card in the format. It's not the best card in the format. I think that title belongs to Archangel of Wrath, but it is definitely the most significant card in the format, because it's an uncommon, and because it's so powerful. And it's also significant in a way that its power level is also relatively strong, because there are not cards that we've seen in previous sets that are at another level of strength. And so let's just get right into it. Let's look at some 17Lands data here. All of this data is accessible on 17Lands.com. I recommend everybody go give it a look for yourself. But yeah, so let's just sort of do a little format overview, beginning with Wingmantle Chaplain. And why? So first of all, I think everybody at this point understands that the card is good, right? The card is very good. It's always worth building around. It's a card that you should be thinking about when you're drafting, even if you don't have it yet, because it's so strong. And because there are cards, or because there is specifically a card named Shield Wall Sentinel that can get it. You can tutor it from your deck, and it's a common, and it's a colorless common, so you can put it in. It's important that it's colorless because it means you can always cast it on turn 4 if you have 4 lands. Doesn't matter what kind of mana you got. And it also, this card being a defender is great because it gets you another bird off of Wingmantle Chaplain. And so the strengths of Wingmantle Chaplain are apparent in its statistical profile. Let's sort of go through all the heavy hitters. Games in hand. Generally my stat that I like. I'm becoming more 17Lands literate and fluent, I guess, or I mean just data fluent in general. Sort of taking into account more stats, but I think games in hand is still the best overall stat at determining how good a card is universally. Wingmantle Chaplain specifically is a little bit different because you are building your deck around the card when you have it, because that's how it's at its best, is when you have the ability to play a bunch of defenders, and then you play this on turn 4 and your opponent concedes because you're going to make a bunch of flying birds every turn for the rest of the game, basically. And if you have any ways to recur the Wingmantle Chaplain or bounce it back to your hand, it's just really insane. So yes, so that's games in hand. Next stat that is important to look at, it's the third winningest games in hand. Win rate card, 66.7%. It has bounced back and forth between second and third. It has gone down a little bit because people are picking it now and playing it maybe when they shouldn't as much, because people have realized how strong it is, and so that it's being played when there's less support for it. Whereas previously, in the early days, it was only being played when you had a lot of support. I mean, it still has, a lot of games in hand. And again, part of that is the tutor. The tutor is going to get it into your hand in a higher percentage of the games that you play. And so let's talk about the games that you play. So if we reorder by games played win rate, it has essentially the same win rate as Archangel of Wrath, 61.8. And what that means is the decks that have the card in it, whether you draw the card or not, are winning at this rate. Now, usually the stat is sort of can be indicative of color strength, partially, because it means that the cards may or may not be doing things independently strongly when you draw them, but the color and the support around them is very strong. And that's sort of what's going on here, right? Is that this the deck, the Wingmantle Chaplain deck itself is winning at 61.8%. The Defender's deck. And Wingmantle Chaplain is the reason to play the deck. And that's what's so strong about it, is that it's an uncommon payoff for something that rewards you with a card that has a win rate that is a rare. Like, the Wingmantle Chaplain will always be the best card in your deck if you draft around it, right? So if you get a pack 1, pick 1 Wingmantle Chaplain, it's the best card to pack 1, pick 1 in the entire format, I think, for that reason, is that there are tutors for it, and like you can pack 1, pick 1 Archangel of Wrath, right? Like, you could do that, and you could take it over Wingmantle Chaplain, and that's fine if you want to do that. But I think it is correct, actually, in fact, to take the Wingmantle Chaplain pack 1, pick 1, because you are drawing that card so much more often than you're drawing Archangel of Wrath. Just as a result of the fact that you have a card, like, you have common cards that are colorless and that go very, very late in the draft, have an average last CNAT of, let's see if I can find it again. There it is. So it has an average last CNAT of 7.73, which means that you're wheeling it almost every time. I guess that's not necessarily what that means, but it means that it's wheeling a high percentage of the time. And this average taken out's very high as well. Like, the fact that this is so different between 17Lands users and non-17Lands users is, like, very surprising to me, given how much, like, I think 17Land users know at this point that the Chaplain deck's busted. Anyways, back to sort of my traditional games and hand sorting. Pack 1, pick 1 Wingmantle Chaplain is the best thing to do in the format because you can get the defenders. And you are drawing the best card in your deck so much more often than any of the other cards that could be the best card in your deck. That just that consistency alone of having a game plan and being able to execute that game plan in, I don't know, the majority of games. I guess I would say that you get to execute your game plan about 61.8% of the time when you play Wingmantle Chaplain in your deck. So that's really the piece de resistance of the format, is the Defender deck. And I for one, was wrong about this. I think everybody was wrong about this, myself included. You send a picture of Wingmantle Chaplain to your friend, and you're like, haha, Defender theme payoff, like, it makes these birds. It's kind of funny, because who would ever want to play Defenders in their deck? And then that it's just a format warping mythic, like, bomb uncommon that is now going to be potentially problematic for the format longevity and balance going forward. It's one of the best uncommon payoffs ever for any sort of tribe, quotation marks, the Defender tribe in Limited. It's truly a thing that we have not seen really, even, like, I guess you could say, people say I wasn't playing Nicoria, or I guess that's not the right set. Whatever set Zenith Flare was in, I think it's one of the Zendikar sets. Forgive me for not knowing that stuff about Zenith Flare. People talk about Zenith Flare as like a format warping uncommon. This is on that level, right? And this is like the 17Lands level of, like, format warping in a way. But the thing about this card also is that you can't do it every time. Like, you can't always have it. It's not always in your deck. You can't be like, you can't guarantee to have it, so you can't build the Nuts Defender deck every time and just force it and say, well, I'm going to get a Wingmantle Chaplain in pack 3, because you might not. Someone else might have already taken it, and you're just done at that point. You expect to see about one of each uncommon a draft, or if you expect to open, like, a pod opens about one of these a draft on average, I think is, like, the number. Maybe it's even higher than that. But yeah, the card's absurd. I recently, let's take a look at some data here. Pack 1 picked 1, a Wingmantle Chaplain here. This was an easy trophy. People, like, if you showed people this pick before the format, they would tell you that you were insane. They would tell you all kinds of things about, like, do you need to, like, change? Like, this is this is the format, right? You can see clearly what the format has become by me taking Wingmantle Chaplain over Phyrexian Missionary, a card that is universally great. A card that when I saw it in the spoiler, I said, I can't believe they did this card at uncommon. It's busted. Why did they make so many busted uncommon 2-drops? And they're all overshadowed by a 0/3 for 4. And yeah, this is I can just sort of walk through a little bit about how you build a defender's deck. Now, this is sort of a thing that like don't do as I like say, not as I do here. Like, I mean, Runic Shard I think is a good pick here, but like I'm about to go double pip card. Don't do that. Don't try this at home. It's not a good strategy. But here, right? So Gibbering Barricade, it's a great card. It's a wall. Gotta take it. Another Gibbering Barricade, gotta take it. Even over your Soul Tender, you just take the walls. I had that land there. So I took this Vine Wall, which I was like, well, I'd like to be green if I could. The pack isn't inspiring. This pack was just kind of bad. Took a Grotto. Sam Black has extolled the virtues of the Grotto, and so I've... by the way, this is criminal. There's a pet pick 13 Telerian Terror. Can we discuss that? Anyways. And next pack, this is where the memers amongst you are going to be very sad at me because I didn't take Boat plus Wingmantle Chaplain, which is one of the best combos in the set. But I took Wrath, which actually ended up being an enormous house and just like won me so many games. So like I don't regret it. No regrets. And then here it is. Here's the end of the draft. I don't need to tell you any more about this draft. There's a second Wingmantle Chap, and I got past it in pack 2. So like that's the end of the draft. And so we're gonna return now, and we're gonna talk about other things. We'll talk about other things, I promise. But that was my piece. That was the piece on Wingmantle Chaplain. It's absurd. Yeah. So with that being said, it's time to talk about some color win rates. And currently, the 17Lands user populace is winning at 57.3%, which has dropped. It was very, very high. It was like 60% day one, which was very high. So it has now dropped down to slightly above normal. I guess like Baldur's Gate was 57%. It's funny I made the video that's like, hey, my process is because for 17 you just win about 55% of the time, all the time, and then they immediately started winning more, which is not what should be happening, theoretically. I don't know, maybe the worst 17 lanes you just got pushed out or something. I don't know what happened with that. But normally it's nice to look at two colors, and two color pairs are I believe, still the winningest color type of thing to be doing, of course, because they're the most consistent, they win the most often. They're very boring, though, because this format is a multicolor format. And with multicolor formats, data becomes less universal. It's something that I think you'll hear pretty much everybody say. All the anti-data people will be coming out of the woodwork for this format, for sure. You will hear their talking points mercilessly beaten over your head about how context matters, and I think that all of us would agree that that's true. But I do think that there is still something to be gleaned from the 17Lands data, even in a format where context matters a lot. I think that early on in a draft, it's very important to set yourself up with things that are good so that you have the luxury later on to make contextual picks, right? You don't want to be having to be forced to make power level picks that are later on in your draft, because you're like, well, my deck needs this type. My deck just needs a card draw spell. I'm a blue-black deck, and I need to take a card draw spell over this really good card, or over this contextual. I don't know what I'm saying. We're gonna scrub this from the record. Ignore what I just said for the last 30 seconds. Anyways, I do still think data matters in a set that's multicolored, even though it is more difficult to utilize. With that being said, the two best archetypes are the two most aggressive archetypes in Selesnya and Boros. Both of them have the same win rate, 61.7%. It's very high win rate. It does not surprise me that these decks are performing very well. Yeah, I mean, there's really not much else to say on my end. Ultratrav is also very good. It's the third highest. It's sort of in tier 2 with Azorius, and people have sort of been talking about Azorius. Gruul's the worst, which is interesting because the thing with Gruul is you're never really like it's funny, right? Like Gruul is worse than Gruul with a splash because Gruul domain is sort of what you want to be doing. And yeah, I mean, I think there's other green stuff. Yeah, and so it seems like really what you want to be doing in Gruul is playing that domain deck, and that is my experience. Makes your Mirror's Outriders very, very good. We'll get to Mirror's Outrider later. But so in terms of 2 color pairs, if you're going to be 2 colors, I think really what you want to be doing is aggressive. I don't think there's really much of a reason in being in 2 colors if you're not going to be aggressive in this format. 2 color control just isn't a thing. It isn't. I think the win rates say that if you're going to be 2 color control, there's really no harm in playing a 3rd color. And to get the power level of some of those cards, you're dropping, 1 or 2% win rate, and I think you can probably recoup that based on your card quality, potentially, depending on what you want to be doing there. The other thing to note is that there is still, like, most of the decks are, like, all the green decks, the 2 color pairs, don't really... There's no data for any of them, like Gruul and Golgari and Simic, and there should be one more, and I'm being stupid. Where is it? And Selesnya too. They all have very low sample sizes because green is kind of always splashing. It's doing domainy stuff in the format. You very rarely are 2 colors in green, and also the win rates are really bad when you are just 2 colors in green, except for Selesnya, which works pretty well. Because the token theme works really well with the green sort of big stuff, so you kind of have the best of both worlds there. You get like your green tricks, like your green and your white stuff that really works well together and can go wide and whatever. All right, and so more importantly, the 2 color splash is sort of, I think, where I've ended up more of the time, and it's much more fun because I like playing like 8 colors. I'm kind of weird in that I like playing either every single color or only like just be aggressive. I don't really like playing like I don't like in between. I don't know. So that's where I'm at. But yeah, as I said, if you're going to be a controlling deck, there's really not any reason not to play additional colors. I think that being a controlling deck means you should play 2 colors. And notably, a deck that I was absent when I talked about 2 color pairs being good is Izzet, the most played archetype, and really not anything spectacular. I think there was a lot of hype around this archetype. And I think that hype really hasn't been realized in this format. I think people like latched onto it early. It's easy to see how the Spells Matter stuff could be good. But I think there's just a lot of... Like, when I have played the archetype a couple of times, and I have felt it not being enough most of the time. It's kind of like you always sort of feel like you're hanging on the whole game. And then maybe you top deck Lightning Strike for lethal, and maybe you don't. And if you do, then you win, obviously, and if you don't, you lose. That's kind of what Izzet feels like for me a lot of the time. I think there's just better things to be doing, honestly. Like here's 58.9% Izzet win rate, and then you can go down to just like Gruul Splash, and it's like basically the same. Orzhov Splash, basically. Now again, obviously Orzhov is just a better color pair, but it's not that much better. Like you're really not getting anything out of being Izzet. So, all right, that's my take on the colors. Domain stuff is fun. It's playable. You probably don't want to be like 3 colors. You kind of want to have like a 2 color base and splash. That's kind of what the data says, is that you're not giving out much splashing with the 2 color base because of the dual lands. And you can splash multiple colors. Now, this because the splashes don't account for it just being 1 color. It could be 2 splashes. And that would be considered to be 1 extra, like still splash classification. All right, back to the cards. Let's start with the commons. Most important cards in Limited for the most part. The best common is, of course, Shield Wall Sentinel. Again, a very contextual pick, and people will say, oh, but it's not, but I wouldn't. It's honestly possible that right now in the format you should just be like still taking this like it's the best common. People will be like, I wouldn't take this unless I had a Wingmantle Chaplain. But why not? It's like, I don't know. It is sort of like you need to high roll an uncommon, but if you take all the Shield Wall Sentinels and you get the Wingmantle Chaplain, you're winning, you're trophying. It's just not, there's no problems there, you know what I mean? So, Anyways, the best quote-unquote real common is Tolarian Geyser, and this is not a surprise. Take Up the Shield is number 2. Honestly, I did think Take Up the Shield would probably be 1, but whatever, they're very close. All of these are pretty close, actually. A lot of the top, I would say like these first 3 are pretty close, the first 4, and then it's kind of like a little bit of a drop, and then whatever. Geyser is basically just a mono blue card. Take Up the Shield is a white card. Extinguish the Light's black. Espionage is blue-black, kind of. White, blue, black, white, red, red. This is really Boros, so you only play this in Boros. Blue, green, and then black. So it really is sort of painting a picture that at common, at least, the best commons are in the Esper colors. The white, blue, and black tend to be the best color, or the best commons, anyways. So if you're going to be in a color to start, and you have to first pick a common, even first picking Lightning Strike. Like, Lightning Strike is kind of a monolith, because there really aren't, it's Lightning Strike and Flowstone Infusion in red. And then here's Mirror's Outrider, but Mirror's Outrider is not really a red card, it's kind of a domain card. You want to play it, you want to have red mana to cast it, but the next red card is, oh boy, Furious Belt. Let's actually take a look at the red commons. Because, as I always say, if red's best commons are the 2-drop to the 2-mana deal 3 and the 1-mana deal 2, red is a bad color. And here we are again. Red's best commons, 2-mana deal 3, 1-mana deal 2. And that's essentially what these are. Now, and generally that means that red is not good. Because the thesis is that you have to be able to play proactive threats in Modern Limited in order to win games. You can't just play cheap removal, because cheap removal doesn't really win you games very often. Obviously, that's obviously it's winning red the most games of any of red's cards, but that basically just means that red doesn't have any good cards. It's what it sort of says to me is, hey, this cheap interaction is keeping you in the game so that your other color can play its good cards, and then you can win the game. Right? Like, that's sort of what it's saying to me. And even, like, right here, so Mirror's Outrider is the 3rd best red common, and then it's, first of all, there are some excluded kicker cards here, but I think the red ones are mostly, Sprouting, there's mostly whatever. I have to look through them. I had them all when they were the common list, and I didn't see a lot of them at the top, so I'm not going to worry about them. And then there's a huge drop off to Furious Ball. Most of the rest of these are completely not even interesting to talk about. Here's Thrill of Possibility. It's maybe slightly better than it's performing slightly better than I thought it would. It will still be bad at the end of the format, so don't, whatever. Yeah, so that's red. If I want to look at a set where red was good, Neon Dynasty is a set that comes to mind. Now Neon Dynasty is only good in mono red. So it was Synthesizer coming through Ultra Surge, right? So that's not great. It was really good in Vow. Bolt, Braid. Okay, maybe I'm just stupid and it's all fucking it's all it was bad at Midnight Hunt. AFR was pretty good. Okay, so the 2-mana removal spell is just always red's best card. Maybe I'm just stupid and it's just always red's best card. At common, anyways. Okay, ignore what I was saying about all that stuff about saying that red having its 2-drop deal 3 is being its best common, but it is always it's boring. I wish they would stop printing them because it is boring to say, hey, every set it's fucking the 2-mana deal 3 again, guys. Here it is. But in those sets, as you can see, let's go back to Vow again. There are other cards that are doing good things. Man, I'm actually really surprised that Sullivan's does not have a higher win rate than that. I'm also surprised at how low these win rates are for 17Lands users. All right, back to the format I'm actually supposed to be talking about next. Green. Gaia's Might is green's best common, and this is not a surprise to me that much. I think I put this card into tier 2 when I rated it. because I said this could be a 4/4 sometimes, and it actually has turned out to be that a lot. This card is very good in domain aggressive type decks. Yeah, it's very good. And then there's just a 4-mana 4/4 with reach. Reach is nice. And here's Bite Down. I don't know. The community is maybe more woke on Bite Down than the streamers here, but yeah. So green really is a domain color. Like when you're playing green, all of these things say, okay, you need to be playing multiple colors to be playing green. This card is surprisingly playable. I thought it would be terrible. It's pretty bad, but it's not unplayably bad. And this card, no comments about this card. I have no comments about this card. Actually, I'm just interested in its win rate in white-green. Where is it? What is its win rate in white-green? Where is it? 55.5. So still really bad, but at least playable. Okay. Next. Black. I'm going in a weird order. Extinguish the Light is good. Yeah, this is an enormous surprise. You gain 3 life, I would say, about 60% of the time, I think. Maybe it's only 50% of the time. But when you're not gaining 3 life, you're kind of still gaining 3 life because you're removing something that's worth the 3 life that you're not gaining to get. So this card's just great. Next, Rager. Rager's really good. Of course, Rager's really good. It draws you a card. Drawing cards is really good. Now, this card is the first time that I've talked about this. We saw the Phyrexian Espionage earlier, and I said I would get back to it, and I will get back to it. But this is another version of that card, another version of the Divination. And for those of us who are unfamiliar with the world of Divination being good, it's upon us again. You know, my brothers, Divination is good in this set, and that's really a tribute to it being a slow set, one of the slowest sets in a long time, actually, with all tap lands and stuff, and Defenders being good. It's also contributed to that, I think, a little bit. Because Defenders is kind of a combo deck. No, and I've said enough about Defenders, though. But yeah, this card's just good. Divination, the card advantage really matters a lot in this set, and this card gives you some selection, not typically a ton of selection, but you know, it being really good is good. And this card has really surprised me. Eerie Soul Tender is the mill card. It's really the only self-mill thing in the entire set, and you really do want to be self-milling if you're in black, and so this really does help you do that. And its average last seen at is actually really late. It's later than Battlefly Swarm, which is kind of an embarrassment for the community at large. It is not later than this, which actually kind of makes sense to me. But these cards both go really, really late. And that's why I think black is actually a good color to be drafting right now. Next, blue. Essence Scatter, a card that I had not actually played in Limited before, because I have not played that many Limited sets. On Arena, I took a long break from Magic. I'm now back, and so I did not know how good this card is. Everybody else seems to have been right about this, so nothing more to say. Now, Impulse. This is interesting that it's the second highest card, but honestly, it kind of makes sense. It really does. It gets you the best cards in your deck, always. So either it's drawing you the best cards in your deck, or you're getting closer to the best cards in your deck by putting the other cards on the bottom. You know what I mean? So it's always getting you towards the best cards in your deck, which is really nice. It is a cantrip. You can hold it up on your opponent's turn and do Essence Scatter things. These two cards work really well together. I think that's the whole story. This card, Talos Lookout, it's good. I mean, there's really nothing more to say. It flies. I have no problem with it. But the double blue does hurt it quite a bit. Now, again, Impulse being seen this late is very interesting. Blue, I think, is a good color, again, to draft because the cards do go so late, as you can see here. Like Talos Lookout being the highest drafted card, but really not imperative to winning. And there really is sort of there's sort of 3 tiers of blue. Commons, it's these top two, Essence, Scatter, and Impulse, and then these three, Telescope, Tellurian Terror, and Shore Up, and they all play very well together, because the Tellurian Terror is sort of like what you build the whole deck around. You're casting a bunch of spells, and then you get to play it for cheap, and you can play two of them, and it's really nice. Academy Wall, you basically only play if you're in walls, but you should play it if you're in walls, because it's good. Alright, next. And finally, it's white. Take up the shield, and then this card, Arcavian Cavalier. Yep, Cavalier is very good. I've underrated this card in my review because I don't know why, really, to be honest with you. Like, I'm a big stats matter guy, and this gives you a 3/3 for 3, and that's... Yeah, so this was a miss for me. And then this is the big surprise. Destroy Evil. Main deckable removal for large stuff and enchantments. There are a lot of enchantment removal sources in white in this set. There are 3 of them, 1 at each rarity that's not mythic. And yeah, so this helps you with that, and it helps you with the big stuff, which is what white really cares about dealing with. White deals with the small stuff very, very well with Take Up the Shield, because you just run over you attack into your opponent's 3/3 with the 3/3, you take up the shield, and then you deal with the small stuff. But if they play a big thing, when you Take Up the Shield isn't as good, you can just destroy evil. So these cards actually play really well together. Here's Clockwork Drawbridge. I mean, I assume that the card is only good because of Wingmantle Chaplain, but these stats suggest that it's not. The fact that its win rate is so high and that it's been played in so many games suggests that it's not just because of Wingmantle Chaplain, but like, I don't know. I'm still pretty sure this is Wingmantle Chaplain. You'll have to check in with me on this in the future, because this is really, like, the fact that its win rate's better than Citizen's Arrest is shocking. Although it's not actually that shocking. The double white is very hard in this set. But anyway, I think white is the best at common. I mean, at least the deepest at common. Its lowest rated common is winning at 55%. So white is probably the best color at common. Alright, let's move on to the uncommons. We're just going to talk about the ones that matter. We already talked about the one that matters, My King, Wingmantle Chaplain. And then the second one that matters is Show Brawler. Notably, it wins at 3.5% less than the best uncommon, which is unheard of. This is, again, these stats, like, it's hard to describe how much, like, difference there is between Wingmantle Chaplain and everything else that you can be doing in the entire set. But the fact that Nishoba Brawler, which is an uncommon that is winning at a very high rate, and is the highest, I think, that an uncommon, like, is very, very high for, even for an uncommon. Not as high as, like, as HBG, whatever it's called, Imprisonment, Sea Tower Imprisonment. It's not as high as that, but this card is very, very good. The trample matters a lot, and it just smashes in the domain decks. It's the key to the domain decks. Micromancer, a card that, again, I just missed for some reason. I don't know why. I just sort of forgot that it just is drawing you a card, and there's a lot of kicked stuff. Like, I thought that there weren't that many 1-mana spells. There are enough that you want to play it. Especially there's a couple of uncommon ones. Cast Down and Runic Shot work really well with this card, amongst other things. Next, Tatyova. I was optimistic about Tatyova, and I was right to be optimistic, but I wasn't optimistic enough about Tatyova. I thought Tatyova was going to just be, oh, this is a great uncommon. No, it's a amazing gold uncommon. The best of the gold uncommons is Tatyova, Steward of Tides, which is very impressive considering some of the strength of the other ones, and especially given its casting cost and the color combination, right? Like, to be honest, you're probably just splashing the blue most of the time when you cast this, but, like, Tatyova is just such an enormous house, because games really do go very long, and this can beat Defender. This is one of the very few cards that matches up okay with the Defender deck, because it can sort of attack past the birds, and it can helps to block the birds, too. So, the card is just amazing. A lot of other good green uncommons, and we can get into some removal, any other things. Like, this not being number one is really sort of a tribute to the format being good, to be honest with you. Part of the reason this is not number one is that it gets taken so highly. I presume it's the most... No, it's actually taken after Prayer Binding. People love removal, although they're also right to do it. I don't know, it's literally the exact same game hand one, right? So this discrepancy should not be this high. But this is also 2 colors, so maybe that's part of it too. So maybe it's probably about the same. Yeah. Anything interesting otherwise down here? This card's good. Wrath is really, really good all the time, especially in Defenders. Wrath in Defenders is so good because all of your stuff can get tapped because it never attacks. So it works really well in the Defender deck. Yeah. All right. That's it for uncommons. This card is winning a lot. I mean, apparently, I don't know. Again, all the the cheap defenders appear to be winning a lot. So maybe I should try them in the Defender deck. Maybe they're good. I don't know. I haven't needed to yet. This card's great. I thought it would suck because I didn't read it. This, actually, let's talk a little bit more about Is It, because Electrostatic Infantry is an uncommon that looks so good on face value. But this is sort of characteristic of why Is It, of Is It not being a good archetype, or at least an archetype that's overdrafted currently. Its win rate's only 59.6. People were talking about this card like it was going to be a top 10 uncommon. It's not even a top 15 uncommon, I don't think. It's close. It's around top 15, maybe top 20. And that's really, that's Is It right there. So this card is surprisingly playable. I thought it would be bad. It's fine. Runic Shot I thought would be terrible and is playable, mostly because of Micromancer. It works really well with Micromancer. Let's look at the bad ones. Anything that's not surprising. Anything that's surprising about these. Nothing surprising yet. So these 2 cards, I was very right about these 2 cards. These are the 2 cards that I was very right about. I held firm on my beliefs that these cards would be terrible. And yes, they are indeed terrible. This one is not as obvious, but the creatures that need you to have other creatures to have power and toughness tend to be very bad, and this has continued the trend of that being true. I think in green-white it's probably playable, but I don't know. I have lost to it, but it still isn't really very good. Anything else that's surprising to me? No. I'm surprised this is this low. It really was a format early success story, but it's really sort of shown up to be too slow these days. I thought Pilfer would be more playable than it is too. Alright, I'm wandering. On to the rares. Everybody knew about Archangel Wrath. It's the best card in the set, standalone. It's very upset on its facial expression. I don't know. I'm trying to give it a look right. I can't figure out. I'm trying to figure out what it's even. I don't know. Anyways, next, Herd Migration. This card is amazing, and I did not play it in my Chaplain deck because I was like, nope, can't play green, so I didn't do it. It's still trophied, anyways. Elder Dragon Wars 1 is really, really good because it also deals damage to your opponent's face. That's the nice thing about it. I don't know. These are kind of sort of mostly obviously strong. The Wrath is good, which is interesting. Yep. Okay. That's my take on. That's sort of my take on the reason. So I'm just gonna wrap up pretty soon here. I'm gonna go back to everything, and yeah. Is there anything else I would want to look at? Yeah. Let's actually take a look here. So I mentioned earlier about this format being very slow, and here it is. So it's not as slow as the original Dominaria. As you can see, the original Dominaria is here, or Theros, or Ravnica, but it is pretty slow format, especially over the last couple of years. It is a slow format, and that means that all of the people that like slow formats are going to like it, which is a lot of people. Yeah. All of the people that like these formats down here, like HPG and Midnight Hunt, like me, big Midnight Hunt guy. It's very interesting. Like the games are lasting very long. Right? They're lasting 9.7 turns in Vista 1, which is very long. But yeah, so it's close to 50-50 on the play and the draw, which is good, usually. All right. I think I am going to call it there. Thank you for watching. This has been my early look and rant about Wingmantle Chaplain. So I appreciate you watching that, or not watching it, and just kind of like listening to it and doing something else. That would be also cool. Anyways, see ya.